This is Joe Cobsick. It's September 5th, 2018. A little earlier this afternoon, I was listening to the Dennis Prager show out of Chicago on AM 560, and his fill-in host was named Mark Davis. Mark Davis was talking about the people protesting at the Brett Kavanaugh Supreme Court hearings, and he was saying that we need to, he was complaining about liberals who want to ban everything they don't like conservatives always do. And he was saying that we need to respect the 9th and 10th Amendments of the Constitution and the separation of powers. I agree with him on those last 2 points. Then he was talking about abortion and saying that there's no right to an abortion. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying I would never say anyone has a right to compel a health worker or doctor to abortionists to give them an abortion. I don't think anyone has a right to a free abortion unless they can convince someone with those skills to give them an abortion for free. You have the right to an abortion if you can pay for it. So I think that a right to an abortion exists regardless of whether the state exists or not, regardless of whether the state tries to interfere or not. And I don't think it has any right to interfere. And a little bit of background on abortion law is required before I go further. A lot of people assume that Roe v. Wade conferred or recognized some right to abortion. It really didn't. It kind of just made that conditional upon states' rights to regulate what happens in the third trimester of abortion, as long as it doesn't put an undue burden on people. Now, here's the thing. Roe versus Wade has not been overturned, but it has been compromised by a 1992 Supreme Court case called Planned Parenthood versus Casey. And that gave the states even more leeway to regulate late-term abortion. And, now it's getting to 16, 24 weeks that their laws are about. So, we have rights. The states are interfering with them. And Republicans assume all too often that the 10th Amendment just gives them some right to interfere with people's natural rights. And so I called in and I said, hey, Mark Davis, what about this? What about the 9th Amendment recognizes that we have a natural right to have an abortion? Our right to bodily autonomy, our individual sovereignty, our physical integrity, the right to control what goes on within the boundaries of our bodies, what goes in and out of our reproductive organs and our minds and our eyes and our mouths. I didn't say all that, of course. But basically, his answer was nothing is a natural right, and that's ridiculous. The state can basically pass any law it wants, and it can even ban anything that it wants. And he also said we may not like it. And so I answered, well, how can you criticize liberals for wanting to ban everything they don't like when you do the same thing and you admit they have the right to? Again, I didn't say all that. And I said, you're enabling that. And he said, his answer was, well, that states can choose, states can have different abortion policies, different gay marriage policies, different all these things that aren't mentioned in the Constitution. And I said, well, I guess that's a fair point. And I just hung up because I didn't feel like dealing with it. So that's why I made this video, but I'm going to continue, of course. So he was trying to say that, I think he doesn't get the 10th Amendment. He's saying people need to understand the 9th and 10th Amendment, but the problem is that people promoting the 9th and 10th Amendment don't understand it. Hopefully that doesn't apply to me today. But the 10th Amendment says that the 9th Amendment says the enumeration of the Constitution, or the lack of enumeration, should not be construed to disparage people's rights. And the 10th Amendment says that the rights not delegated expressly to the federal government are retained by the states or to the people. See, it says the states or to the people. It doesn't say the states and then the people. It doesn't say the people hang on to their natural rights that they got on the day they were born, as long as the state feels like recognizing them, as long as the state doesn't want to interfere with them, as long as the state feels like charging fees and making them fill out a form and get a license or a permit and register all the things that I think are their property to the government. So yeah, the states do not have the right to deny our natural rights. They only have the authority that we give them. See, we have to authorize their authority, or else it's unduly delegated authority. In a voluntary government, if it is a voluntary government, in order for it to be a voluntary government, we can only delegate rights which we already have to government. And we can't delegate the right to just ban everything in a jurisdiction. We don't that right doesn't exist. States do not have some authority to ignore people's contracts and to enforce them selectively. if I get a contract that says I'm married to a person of the same sex, there's no reason why the state should discriminate against me and ignore that contract when I have it on paper that it's a voluntary agreement between me and my husband. So they apparently think that the state's going to enforce that selectively and ban people from having certain kinds of contracts based on who they are or demographic things about them. See, they're always complaining that Democrats are like, oh, they're obsessed with identity politics. Like, are you freaking kidding me? How you want to discriminate against people based on whether they're gay and not let them have a marriage when any court would uphold that if you put it up to a jury? And so here's the thing. We know that natural rights are achievable in other states. So why can't we have them in other states, like gay marriage? Like Mark Davis was criticizing Obergefell versus Hodges, the gay marriage case from a couple of years ago that required all states to recognize gay marriage as valid in other states. And I agree with that decision because we were supposed to have equal protection under the law, regardless of which jurisdiction we're located in, because we know that right is possible over there. So why can't we have it over here? See, in a way, Mark Davis is right. These liberties are not exactly rights. They are attainable liberties, though. But the thing is, now that we know that they exist, I kind of feel like I have a right to them. I want to do whatever I want that doesn't hurt anybody else, regardless of whether the state bans it. And here's the ridiculous thing about it, is the 14th Amendment argument. See, conservatives will criticize the 14th Amendment for arguably giving the federal government supremacy over the states, but they pay lip service to it because they think it confers legal personhood to a fetus, and they use that to back up their whole, the right to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness, etc. But you see, they don't believe in the right to life. I'll get to that in a second. I think a lot of you won't know where I'm going with this, but not completely. Mark Davis does not respect the 9th Amendment because he thinks that the state gets to ban anything it wants. And if you believe that, then you must also believe that the state has the right to license out the rights to do things to people and to only recognize their rights if they pay the government a fee for getting a permit or a license or to register something, which then it becomes not their property anymore and they don't really realize it. So the 9th Amendment, as ironic as it is, even though it's written on a piece of paper, the whole point of the 9th Amendment is that your rights don't come from a piece of paper. And just because the 10th Amendment exists doesn't mean the state gets the right to interfere with our rights. The whole purpose of the state is to uphold and respect and not ignore and reinforce and protect our rights. I think I said protect twice, but yeah, maybe I shouldn't have said protect at all. Maybe the people are the only ones who can actually protect it in the first place. Maybe we don't need the states. Maybe the states do inherently and always interfere with our rights. This rejection of the 9th Amendment while paying lip service to it is majoritarianism because it believes that people can be granted or denied licenses and permits based on the will of the majority. That's what Democrats believe. You're not supposed to criticize Democrats for believing that. Well, you believe that. And the most ridiculous thing about this is that applying this to abortion is the most ridiculous thing about this, oddly enough, because Mark Davis is doing exactly what liberal pro-choice people do, his enemies supposedly, who want to kill babies. He assumes that the state can and does make abortion safe in order to back up his argument which is ironically a pro-Roe v. Wade argument. All right, let me try that one more time. He assumes the state can and does make abortions safe, but in so doing, he risks driving abortion into the black market because he knows that, Roe v. Wade and Casey versus Planned Parenthood, and Brett Kavanaugh knows this too, I hope, that they gave the states to write, gave the states they recognized the state had an authority, an obligation to make sure that abortion was done safely. But that assumes that the state has the right to ban all abortions not performed under the guidance and supervision and approval of the state, usually with whatever, cost it wants to impose, whether insurance pays for that or not. And then you could argue about whether that gets the government involved. And, yeah, it gets the government involved. But that's the fault of conservative legislators who are making laws limiting people's abilities to get abortions in a timely way before it grows up into, a 16, 24-week-old fetus. I do know someone personally who wanted to get an abortion at like 3 or 6 weeks, soon as she knew she was pregnant. And she decided not to because of all the waiting periods. And of course, there's the information they have to give you in the fetal sonograms, which that is pretty ironic too, that conservatives will complain that, Obamacare wants to make people pay for things that insurance covers, but a disease that they could never, ever get because of who they are, or their situation or whatever. But they'll also say that they should be able to compel someone to get a fetal sonogram, which then arguably obligates them or insurance to pay for it. But the conservative legislator or Supreme Court case or the radio host advocates for making that decision on behalf of the person. They're getting an abortion because they can barely afford the abortion. They can, much less afford a child. And they would be raising that child to live in a world where you believe that the right to life is limited. See, you want to criticize pro-choicers for saying that the right to life can be limited by someone getting, aborting their child. But you believe the right to life can be limited because you believe in contract killing. You want to talk all day about how the Democrats believe in people perverting the rule of law and putting people and force over the rule of law and written law. But you do that all the time. You support contract killing because you support government edicts, presidential proclamations and executive orders, presidential actions that were given up to the president by a legislator that wanted to suck the goddamn president's dick. And Nixon was like, get off of me, bitch. And, the War Powers Act is what I'm talking about, so I don't look completely insane. But no, those edicts and those war powers, those declarations override the limitations on government which we're supposed to have, because laws do interfere with people. States do interfere with people's rights. And all these wars that are causing all these people to die, those orders are signed by the president and nobody else.